Unboxing Careers.
Welcome everyone to the Unboxing Careers podcast, a show dedicated to discovering what careers are actually like. I'm your host, Greg Zakowitz, and today we're diving into the world of public relations with PR pro Keara Donnelly, account director at Berkeley Communications. So Keara, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, so let's start with this, Keara. Tell us about your current role and a little bit about what Berkeley Communications does, since I mentioned Berkeley Communications here. So give us a quick level set, if you would.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm currently an account director at Berkeley Communications. So I run about 4 accounts currently across B2B tech, healthcare, and higher education. So I lead from client calls, helping my team brainstorm pitch angles and thought leadership topics. And at Berkeley Communications, we focus on the power of storytelling. So cutting through the noise and helping our clients get into the media.
Perfect. And for those, I'm assuming most people are familiar, but just in case they are not, when you say work with clients or companies, B2B tech, you guys are doing what specifically? So not the day-to-day, because we're going to get into that, but that company hires you to do what for them?
Exactly. Yeah. So for B2B tech specifically, we work with a client in data management currently. I work with a client in telecommunications. And we also work with clients in manufacturing as well on the tech side. So we kind of work with like a wide range from that front. But what we mean by that is basically we help them tell their story in the media. So that's like pitching out press releases, securing thought leadership bylines, which is basically like an opinion article that you would get placed in either a top tier publication like the New York Times or like a trade publication like Fierce Healthcare for one of our healthcare clients. So the day-to-day definitely varies on the types of topics that we discuss and help them with.
Perfect. And Keara, is this I normally ask, like, how did you decide to go on to this as a career? Has PR been an angle you've always wanted to go into, or did you kind of maneuver yourself in the PR by studying something else? Walk us through kind of deciding on this as a career, if you could.
Yeah, it actually started back in when I was in high school. I actually did a pre-college program at Marist College. I was actually at the time for sports communications. So we got to learn about all the different areas within communications. So PR really stuck out to me and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So then when I went back into college, I decided to study strategic communications at St. Bonaventure University. And there we had a course for specifically public relations. And I really, really enjoyed that class. And then from there, I ended up getting an internship at Marino Public Relations, and that's where my career actually did start.
Yeah, and what about sports communications appealed to you in high school? You're a sports fan, I assume, but like, what about that angle made you want to go into that as a career?
Yeah, no, I've always loved sports. I've always loved watching it, especially with my brother and everything. So yeah, it was definitely an avenue I definitely was interested in. I actually did work a little bit in sports previously to my current role. I actually worked at WCBS 880 AM, the former New York Mets radio station. So not specifically PR, but kind of learning the other side of PR, which is working directly with radio journalists. So it was a really great opportunity to kind of learn like how journalists work, and then now coming into the other side.
Perfect. Do you think this is off topic, do you think you'll find your way back into kind of the sports side of things at some point in your career?
That would definitely be something I would be definitely interested to see again. But as of right now, I really love my current role and the opportunity I have here. But you never know. It could always open up a door down the road.
Very good. And we're going to have to kind of figure out what we're doing here. Favorite football team?
Currently, unfortunately, the New York Jets, which they've had a pretty bad start to the season, but at least the Giants won yesterday against the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'll take that one.
There you go. Yeah, that's different topic, different day. That front office needs to change. Okay, so Keara, let's talk about education. You talked about wanting to do it in high school, getting a path into collegiate career, and then so typical college to career type model. Walk us through someone that wants to work in PR. What's the typical path for them? Maybe walk us through the path you took, which you did a little bit, but walk us through again, and then how that kind of transitions into the real world after you get out of college.
Definitely. Yeah, I would definitely highly recommend studying a degree in communications to some degree, either on the journalism side, maybe even a degree specifically in public relations. And then from there, it's just so important to be active on campus. Like back at my time at St. Bonaventure University, I wrote for the Bonaventure newspaper. And then I also interned as an office and marketing communications intern for my university as well. So really getting involved on campus. I also wrote for her campus as well. So it's just really important to get that internship, that experience on campus. And then from there, of course, securing an internship as well. What was really great specifically about my university is that we actually needed at least 400 hours of time for graduation. So between internships that I did in New York City and then also even on campus experience, it was really important to get that in order to even graduate.
That 400 hours, that's curious to me. Normally there's a requirement like, hey, you have to do a summer internship, but there's usually not an hour stipulation with that. Is that over the course of 4 years, over the last 2 years? How does that break down?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was of the course of 4 years, like throughout our time there. So from there, I interned as the office and communications intern at my university, and then I also interned at Marino Public Relations as well. So between those two things, that definitely helped. And then of course, any um, things you did on campus as well. Like I said, at her campus, that would count towards hours.
Perfect. And then coming out of school, you went into what specifically type of roles were you looking for? Was it sports management? Were you looking for traditional PR firms? What specifically were you looking for when you started applying for work?
Yeah, so when I landed that internship back at Marino Public Relations, based in New York City, I actually started right after there. From there, they offered me a job after I graduated. So I started
No.
right there in June. That would have been back in June of 21. So from there, I stayed there. I got to work across nonprofit corporate communications clients. So it was really great experience. At that role, I was considered an assistant account executive there. So that's just kind of getting getting familiar with, pitching clients, building media lists, monitoring the news, building connections with journalists. So that was a really great opportunity. And then from there, I went on to the Brandman Agency, which is also based in New York. And there I actually worked across luxury travel and hospitality. So completely different, of course, than my role at Marino. But I feel like with public relations, if you can just, be a really good storyteller, understanding your clients and that human element, you really can work across any industry. I feel like it might sound surprising to kind of like bounce around from different industries, but I feel like if you have that, being able to feel that human touch, I feel like can go a long way working in public relations.
As a junior person coming into the world of PR, whether it's with a firm or just general organization, do they have a lot of flexibility to say, I don't want to work in these particular industries? I only want to work at these industries, right? Can they be, as a junior person, more selective with what they want to do? Or does that generally come as you have more seniority in your career?
Yeah, I would say it comes with more seniority within your career, especially with junior level, people looking for jobs. Like I feel like you just really need to get that first job. I feel like it's just so important. Obviously, it'd be really exciting to work in that specific industry that you're looking for. But I think if you're willing to take a job that's willing to work with you and has your back, like maybe this will open your eyes to a different avenue that you didn't think previously before.
Very good. And then going into the field, let's talk about competition. Is it a competitive field to get into? Is it easier, kind of get the foot in the door, but it becomes more competitive as you get more senior? What is the typical competition like for the PR industry?
Yeah, I would say it's very competitive. I would also say it's just really, really important to get that experience before you try to get that first job. I feel like people think it's just easy to get that first job right out of a college, but you really need to show the experience that what you're getting. Like I've talked to some people and they talked about the experience of wanting to go into public relations, but I'm like, so what have you done so far without that time in college to really show that you really want to get into this industry? So I would really recommend, working on campus, finding opportunities, reaching out to alumni at your university, and really just trying to look for opportunities before you apply for that first job.
That's really good advice. I'm going to circle back to that in a minute, but I'm going to jump here because I go on tangents here. So I want to dig into your actual job a little bit here. So whether it makes sense for you, I know I've worked with PR firms. do a lot of the same tasks that you guys do with placement here. So I know the chaotic and like the uncertainty around it, but the best you can, try to walk us through like what a typical week might look like with dealing with clients. What I mean by that is like how often are you in meetings, how often are you doing research, and kind of break that down if you can. So if I'm looking at this career, I'm like, how much time am I spending in front of a computer versus on the phone and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. The interesting part about PR is that every day and every week is different. So, for example, we might be on a client meeting, we might have a few client meetings a day, we might be researching, we might be pitching accounts, we may be staffing interviews with journalists, we might be putting together coverage reports or PowerPoint presentations, we might be pitching new business. So, it can really vary on the week to week. For me personally, a lot of the time is, of course, client calls. Those take up a lot of our time. And then, of course, helping my colleagues with pitch ideas, thought leadership byline ideas, and then also, helping, just the day to day of just managing the client, responding to emails. Just it really varies on the day to day. Like, of course, a lot of our time is definitely spent at the computer. Like, so if you're willing to, sit in front of your computer most of the day, I know, sometimes there could also be opportunities to go to events as well, depending on the agency you're at as well. But most of your day to day is probably, responding to emails, being in touch with your colleagues, and then, of course, pitching the media.
So if we could break a couple of those tasks down, just kind of give people an idea that maybe don't know what they look like. So I'm XYZ client, I hire you, I'm like, hey, we'll just say B2B tech, right? Get me in the news. I want to talk about my product. I want to talk about this. I want to be in the forefront of the conversation. You're then tasked with like, how do I get Greg into the news here? Uh, so we're going to have that call. It doesn't have to be the first call, but we're going to have like maybe a weekly or monthly call, whatever it is. And you're going to come. So you're prepping to pitch me ideas about like, hey, here are some opportunities. Do you sign off on these? Do you not sign off on them? What do you think about it? Is that the typical process that you're working with? So you're ideating ways to get reporters to notice me without making a sales pitch. Is that a fair assumption? And
Definitely. Yeah, we have some really great clients. A really important part is having a great and available spokesperson. So that could be like the
yeah,
CEO of the company, that could be the principal architect at a company, it could be the CTO, the chief technical officer. So it's basically our goal is to insert our client into the current news cycle. So that could be around breaking news, it could be around stuff like that, so that basically insert their insights in hopes that they will get into the news and into that tier one coverage that they're looking for.
perfect. And I'm a client. I say, hey, you pitch me, I don't know, 7 ideas we talked through. I say, hey, these 3 sound great. We're then hanging up with that call, and then your job, you're putting together pitches. I'm assuming relatively short, but pitches to then send to a journalist to try to get them, or editor of a online magazine or trade publication, uh, to accept whatever byline or accept whatever coverage or try to plant that story. So, like, what does that process look like for you? Is it like a 1 paragraph pitch and you're just customizing it for them? Like, how much research goes into understanding who that particular journalist is, what they care about, what their beat? Like, how much of that research then in your time is spent doing that type of research and prep work after that call?
Yeah, no, that's really important. It's also, I would say, a few hours. It can take, depends, like, it all depends on the client and how much information you need. I feel like the most important part is really researching the journalists and their publication, like you were saying. Like, it's also really important to target your pitches. Like, journalists don't want to just receive a generic pitch about your client that he can is willing to speak about that. So for me, I still even pitch to this day, and it's really important to really target those journalists. Be like, here, I saw your recent story and I want to offer up so and so who has great expertise on this. Share his opinion. Would you be interested in a call or receiving some commentary from him? I'm happy to connect you. So really targeting your pitches is really important in PR. Like I said, journalists do not want to receive, generic pitches. They receive thousands and thousands of emails a day, and you need to find out a way to stand out in the news.
Then ultimately, your success is judged based on your client's success, right? At the end of the day,
Yes.
I would say it's a fairly thankless job, just from my experience, right? People that get it appreciate it, but most people, even companies that hire you, like you have people that be like, how come you didn't do more for me? That's the sense I get, right? Even though you hit those wins. Um, but ultimately your success is your how often we see your client's name in the news, right?
Exactly. Yeah. All clients have, of course, different priorities and expectations, but a lot of the time they're looking for brand awareness, driving more customers or getting more members to join, you know, on their accounts. So yeah, as a big thing for us is definitely brand awareness. So with getting, great coverage and, I feel like a lot of people think, oh, we need top tier coverage. That's the only type of coverage that's relevant and, interesting, but those trade outlets are just as important. Like that's where your real audience is. Like, yeah, it would be a great to get a nice tier one piece in the New York Times. Like anyone would want that. But, targeting those specific publications, like in health, like two big publications for our, is Med City News and Fierce Healthcare. Those are two really targeted publications that actually mean a lot more because it's going directly to that audience.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, tier one, can you explain what that is real quick?
Yeah, so tier one publications are considered like national publications. So think of the New York Times, CNN, the Wall Street Journal, ABC News, publications that have that. And then trade publications, they'll vary across industries. So in health, like I said, like Fierce Healthcare, Med City News. In the tech space, there's Solutions Review. So those trade publications are really just as important as those national ones.
Perfect. And then Kira, first essential skills. So obviously writing is going to be an important skill for you, maybe researching, but from your experience, what are some of the essential skills that you use on a day-to-day basis? And maybe a bit different way to kind of frame it, but like it asks the same question is when you look at really good PR people and then kind of your underachievers, what are the skills in common that the good ones have that maybe the other ones are lacking?
Yeah, I think communication is definitely really important. Of course, having good written skills, like writing skills as well. And then also, I feel like with the PR industry, especially, it's such a fast-paced industry that you can almost feel like you're falling behind. So having that motivation to, go that extra mile for your clients and your team can really go a long way.
How do you deal with that personally? So it's one of the things where it moves fast. You're always kind of keeping up with the news because you have to read the news and look for kind of quote unquote breaking things based on the industry, but trending things, right, that are relevant to your client. You also have a client demanding things and always demanding more, and it can be overwhelming at times. So, how do you personally deal with kind of just level setting and taking that break when you need it, knowing that it's hard to take a break for a long period because you've got to stay on top of it?
Yeah, definitely. It's really important to take those small, like take breaks throughout the day. Like you can't just sit at your computer all day trying to send emails, do research. Like you really need to give that time to yourself as well. And it's also what I do also is just have that list of things that need to get done and things that can also wait. Having that mindset of like what needs to be done today and what can be waited until tomorrow.
Perfect. And then I don't ask this with everyone. AI say it's changing everything. Like AI is being used all over the place. I'm assuming you're using it from a variety of different platforms. Rather than asking how the industry is changing, because I know it is, and you could feel free to comment on that. How is it changing in the face of AI? So maybe the better question here is, what are the AI tools that maybe you're using that you have found that to help either increase efficiency internally or brainstorm ideas? Are there things that if someone wants to go into this field, be like, hey, these are the couple platforms I should really learn how to use because they're going to help me in some respects.
Yeah, no, yeah, actually here at Berkeley Communications, we actually created this platform called Story AI. So basically what it is that it's a platform where we put together, so our CEO, Chris Hewitt, put together our storytelling formula. So it basically breaks down how to tell a great story. So basically we were training this tool that's on our messaging to help us create better stories and also use it as a brainstorming tool as well.
Do you um, I should think of the best way to phrase this. I was going to say, do you use like GPT or anything to kind of come up with different ideas, right? So a lot of the things people will go, I'll use GPT for this, and I'll run the same thing through Claude. and I'll see what the differences are, because they're going to give you different results to some degree. So, and then you can take the things you like, you can dismiss the things you don't like, but you have multiple tools. Are you doing this with other things as well? You don't have to say the specific platforms, but like how many are using multiple tools kind of for the same thing, just to get a different perspective so you don't get tunnel vision?
Currently not really. Basically, we kind of trained this model to get based on our storytelling method.
Yeah,
So it basically has, we fed it information so that it basically, helps us to either brainstorm or think differently. But yeah, we don't really use, no, I don't currently use anything else.
perfect. And then as far as the rest of the industry changing, so you're also beholden to newspapers cutting down the number of journalists they have,
Mhm.
things shifting online. Even online publications are reducing the number of editors they have in house, which, one, makes them busier. Two, it makes pitches that you send more easily lost in the inbox and kind of discarded. So the industry is changing, but it's kind of a derivative change. It's based on the publication industry. How are you guys coping? Or how are you coping with that? And where do you see that kind of going? That maybe someone going into this field in the next 5 years should probably look at and kind of take a broader assessment of that.
The good thing about our industry is that you need it every day, especially, the news you need, the news won't go away. So it's just about how to get your news into the media. I feel like podcasts are actually a really big outlet that I feel like more of our clients are interested in, and it's another avenue of where, more news is going as well. But then also, I also feel like it's just so important to keep those media relationships already have and still continue to make more. Like I said earlier, it's really important to have those targeted pitches when you're sending them out to the media because they don't have the time to like skim through all these. So you want to find a way to get into their inbox and be helpful. At the end of the day, it's a collaboration between you and a journalist. So you want to be on a good team for the success of the story.
Yeah, I would say the support. I run this lowly little podcast over here, right? And I probably get 5 PR firms a day throwing me stuff, and most of the pitches are not relevant at all, right? They don't pay attention to the audience. They're just batch and
Hmm.
it almost looks like batch and blast, right? Copy, paste, rinse, repeat,
Yes,
check the box, and things like that. And I think this goes into your relationship point where if you're not sending helpful things, you're not going to establish a good relationship with people. So kind of doing some of the early
exactly.
work that you talked about, like, hey, we got to research journalists, we got to research what they write about, what they care about. That's work that goes in, that's maybe minutia work or mind numbing work or boring work, but I do think it's
Exactly.
important.
No, it's really, really important. Like, you would rather send one good pitch than 10 bad pitches, I feel like, especially or just blasting pitches is really it's not worth anyone's time. Your client wouldn't want that, you don't want that, and it also just doesn't help your reputation in the media. Like I said, it's really important to do those targeted pitches, go that extra mile and also like follow up with the journalists afterwards. I always find it like what I do after I connect with them is I also always send them like, thank you so much for connecting with my client. I really appreciate your time and ask if they need anything else following it. And then even checking in with them. Oh, I know you talked to my client a few months ago. Would you be interested in connecting again? I just feel like that can go a really long way with building relationships with the media and also, putting your client, keeping your client top of mind for that journalist as well.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Uh, Keara, what are some things that people going into this PR or going into the PR field should know that either no one tells them or is maybe something that surprised you that you didn't expect?
I would say like the writing side. Oh, honestly, writing emails. That might sound really tedious and not really something that you really think of, but being able to write a good email goes a long way. You're sending client emails to either like a CEO, the head of communications, and I feel like that's something you don't really learn in college is like how to write a good email, and that I feel like can go a really long way in your career being able to do that.
This might be a tool of the trade here. So if it's a protected secret for you, feel free not to share and we can bypass the question. But like, what makes a good email? Is there a particular structure, length that you try to shoot under? Like, what makes a good email?
I was just saying being personable, double checking that you didn't spell anything wrong. It's really like those simple things that can really go a long way, having a nice closing statement, keeping it short and concise, you know, nothing really too crazy or out of the ordinary, but it's more just, keeping it straightforward. Don't have spelling errors. Be helpful in your email. Let me know if you have any questions. Happy to hop on a call. Like those little simple things that can really go a long way, especially even when you're reaching out to journalists. Like, yeah, you're creating a pitch, but you're also sending them an email. Ask them how they are, ask them, how can you help? And, even personalize your subject lines. Like things like that can really go a long way when reaching out either to your client or even the media.
Perfect. And as we get to our final few kind of wind down here, this is going to come across as a really weird question. I hope I frame it. It's going to be one of those things where like it doesn't come out quite as you meant it to come out, but I'm just going to say it anyways. Like, what is the draw to PR? Like someone working in the PR field, because you're kind of like in the shadows, right? You're not getting the general PR rules. You don't want your name. If your name is mentioned, you're probably doing something wrong, right? So,
Exactly.
this goes back to me earlier saying it's kind of a thankless job. In some respects, it is. But like your goal is to be anonymous, right? But you do these great things. Like, what is the draw to PR for someone who wants to go into that?
It's like that human connection, like telling stories, like, getting your client excited when you get them a piece of coverage. Like, there's nothing, even to this day, there's nothing more exciting than seeing your client land in either that top tier publications that I mentioned or even the trades. Like, I feel like even just building stories, connecting with people, and kind of being in that background. But at the end of the day, you were the one that kind of helped them get to that point.
It's a really good answer. I wasn't sure where I was going with that question, but it always sticks out to me here. So thank you for that, Keara. How about the most challenging part or aspects of a career in PR? What would you say the most challenging parts are?
I feel like for especially starting out, I feel like time management can be a really hard thing to do. So really looking to your, managers for advice and what to prioritize. Like I feel like you can kind of, to meet deadlines and stuff like that. But currently I would say is just managing client expectations. Like, if you don't think something might not land in the media or you don't think it's actually relevant for the market you're pitching, like be honest with your client. It's really important. Like say that they have this announcement that has nothing to do with the US. And, in US media, usually they want something that's relevant to their customers or their audience. So I would make sure that it's relevant for them and to be honest with your client.
The conflict management aspect, you're going to have conflict with a client at some point, right? It doesn't have to be animus, but uh, you're going to have disagreement. Like, the PR world, what your contacts are going to publish, and they want something that's not going to publish. And you've got to have a conversation, and it's not always an easy conversation. So, should people study conflict management before going into the field, or are there subtle other skills they can uh, improve upon to help them with that eventual conflict that will come up?
I feel like you kind of just learn it within your career of how to deal with conflict management, especially like I don't really think there's really a course that can really teach you that. There might be out there, but for me, like I think a lot of the time it was a lot of advice I got from my, bosses of how to deal with a certain situation and even, gut checking to see if this is what we should say to the client throughout my career. But with conflict, like you said, with, when like the CEO really wants this piece published in the media, say it's like a byline, which is basically an opinion article about a certain topic, and they start mentioning the company's name throughout the piece, the entire piece, like in US media, has to be vendor neutral, and that can sometimes confuse the CEO of like, why can't my company be mentioned? But then you kind of have to explain to them that basically with your name associated with the article, that's where that expertise comes in, and that's how your company is getting spotlighted in the media. Like US media likes vendor neutral articles. So, that's the way of showing off, the type of topics you can discuss, but that's how you're going to be associated with the article. It's just you're not going to be all over the article. Otherwise, you can pay for an advertisement or a paid media opportunity instead.
Yeah, so pretty much it sounds like expectation setting at the beginning helps alleviate
Hmm.
a lot of that stuff. Yeah. Here, how about what the most rewarding parts of the career? So, what are the things you look forward to on your day to day that you're like, hey, when this happens, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but it's all like getting your clients in the media that they want to be in. Like, there's nothing more rewarding. And then even also receiving good client feedback as well, like telling my team that we're doing a good job and that they appreciate our work. I feel like that really goes a long way in our industry. Like, clients, of course, are always looking for more and more. But when they can, kind of step back and be like, wow, we really appreciate the work you're doing, like, that's really rewarding. And then another thing I would say is like when some of the junior colleagues that I mentor, seeing them do well, like that makes my day. Like when they're getting excited, when they get a piece of coverage or, some great news comes through, like there's nothing better than seeing them as happy. And that just makes me even happier.
Excellent. And then last couple questions here. I'm going to dig into stuff that no one ever wants to ask about. So I was going to say like typical hours work, but like work life balance and if it changes over time. But let's say you are a brand new employee, you're coming in first couple of years on the job. Should you expect a 40-hour work week? Should you expect an 80-hour? Like, what's that work life balance from an early perspective really look like?
I think it can vary. Of the course, it varies on the agency you go to, the demands of the boss that you have, but like hopefully you're working within that 40-hour window. Like I wouldn't say you work 9 to 5. Like people always say, "Oh, I work 9 to 5." I'm like, do you actually though? Does anyone actually only work those little
I don't,
hours,
I don't think
those
so.
amount of hours? Probably not, right? But yeah, I think it's just going to vary week to week. Like there could be days where you work, closer to 10 hours. That's just like the norm of the industry. But especially when you're early on in your career, you're going to want to look like you're like hungry to get to work. So if you're showing that you log off right at 5 p.m. without, checking with your boss, that's definitely not going to be a good sign. That's something I've always done is to, really double checking, especially early on in my career, to really, go that extra mile because it can really go a long way in your career and, to take on those new opportunities.
And that is that does that seem to be consistent as you progress through the career as well? So even yourself, or you look at people, your supervisors, things like that. Do you see those same kind of constraints wrapped in? Do you see as you advance? I mean, a lot of fields as you advance, the expectation is that you would start going to 50 hours and then 60 hours. But do you see those same kind of realistic constraints across your industry as you move up?
Yeah, honestly, I think it kind of stays the same. Like it really all depends on the team you're working for as well. Like, and it also depends on what's going on. Like, in the agency life specifically, like you could have one client that's announcing a new product in 1 week, one's that's putting out something else. So sometimes some weeks might be busier than others, but it really all varies on the agency you choose, and really it really comes down to the people you work with and their mindset and how they work as well.
Perfect. Questions here is around salary. So it's going to be location specific, Toledo versus New York, quite different cost of living. But as someone going into PR, kind of two ways to kind of look at this and provide some general advice is one, do the majority of people going into PR, should they expect to be rich when they retire? I know it's kind of a weird thing, but the flip side to that is going in those first couple of years on the job, again, typically, is that enough to get you by? Do you need a side job with those things? What should someone realistically expect when they go in from a early compensation standpoint?
Yeah, you can definitely get by with, obviously it depends on where you live and your current, living situation. I feel like could also play a part as well. But as a whole, I think it should be pretty realistic when you're coming out of college, at least in New York. But it really all depends on your living situation. Are you still living at home at that point? Did you move in with a friend? Are you still on your parents' insurance? Things like that can kind of play into it. So it really varies.
Okay, but it's stable enough to get you started and then continue on for the most part.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Avoid the penthouse suites. Uh,
Yes,
all
I
right,
don't know about
so
moving out, but maybe. You never know. Depending on your situation, you never know.
and then, Keara, I hope I got to everything here, but is there something that maybe I neglected to ask you that you feel is important that the audience should know about a career in the field?
I think another great thing that I would recommend as well is, not being afraid to reach out to recruiters. Like that might sound really scary and intimidating, but like, of course, you can go on LinkedIn and look for jobs that are available. But sending that note to a recruiter or to the head of HR saying, "Hi, like I'm really interested in your company. Just wanted you to have my name. Here's my cover letter. If there's any opportunities that are available, like please let me know." And that can really go a really long way because when you think maybe a job isn't available, maybe there one is. They just haven't posted it yet.
That's great advice. Great advice. Well, Keara, thank you so much for your time today. If someone wants to reach out, ask a question about your career, find out about your firm, we'll throw it all in the show notes, but go ahead and let people know the best way that they should get a hold of you if they have any questions.
Yeah, you can reach me at my email, Keara, Keara Donnelly, Donnelly at Berkeley, Berkeley PR.com, or visit the Berkeley PR website. Or you can also find me on LinkedIn as well with my name.
Perfect. And we'll hash the email address in the show notes so we don't have scrapers picking you up. So we'll be all right there. So Keara Donnelly, Account Director of Berkeley Communications. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to explore other careers or share yours with us, please check out our website. Until next time, go Bills.